Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all. Hopefully the weather's bright and sunny in Bournemouth, slightly hazy here in Wiltshire. So just to give you a bit of an introduction on this slide, my name is Ian Wells. I'm the Dorset Council Grants Officer. You've got my email address on this first slide, but we will be sending the slides through, or Chris or whoever will be sending the slides through afterwards. So fine if you want to make some notes, but don't worry, you'll have all the slides, so no worries there. Okay, so you've got my generic email address, and we've also got a sort of team email address, which is communities@dorsetcouncil.gov.uk. So that will either be myself that picks it up for the top one, or it'll be a member of the team, could also be me, that picks up the second one. So let's just go on to the next one. Oh, I think we've got a slight technical problem here because it's not going through to the next slide. Goodness gracious. Bear with me a second. Chris, it's not moving forward through the slides as it was before.
Okay, that's strange. Do you want to, I'm just wondering whether you want to change it back to, you know, the view you had previously where it wasn't shared like
let
this.
me just try that. Maybe just stop sharing.
Yeah.
Try that. Does it work the first time?
It did. Yeah,
Let's try this one.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. Let's try this one then. Right. Okay, this looks more promising.
Brilliant.
Excellent, we're there. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so the fund that I'm going to focus on this afternoon is our Community and Culture Project Fund, round 3. So there have been a couple of previous rounds, but you still have a couple of weeks to apply for this one. And I will mention at the end some of the other funds that we have as well. And I'll send some information out to Chris and he can forward to you. But this is the fund we're going to talk about. So the aims of the presentation really this afternoon is to give an outline of the Community and Culture Project Fund, explain more about the application process, criteria and what we're looking for in an application, the all-important timelines and timescales, closing dates, etc. And also at the end to answer any of your questions. So the fund is now open. It opened on the 29th of April. And it closes on Monday, the 27th of June at midnight. So you've got, if my calculations are correct, you've got a couple of weeks left to apply. And that's enough. We do generally find that people leave it right until the end. So I wouldn't suggest that you do that, but you have still got some time if you feel it's something that you want to apply to us for. Awards, once confirmed through the grants panel, would be Wednesday the 20th of July. I say or thereabouts because depending on the amount of applications, that can vary a little bit. So how much can you apply for? Well, if you're a constituted organisation and you meet our criteria, you can apply for between £1,000 and £5,000 towards your project. We don't really consider applications under £1,000, so you've got to come somewhere between those two amounts in terms of the cost of your project. If you're a newly set up, newly constituted or newly established organisation without 1 year of accounts, but you meet the criteria, you can still apply, but you can only apply for £1,000 to £1,500. And the key thing for this as well is that you need to have raised a minimum of 20% towards the total project costs through your own fundraising activity, so your own funds, or if you've got funding from another partner organisation. So essentially we will fund up to 80%, but you do need to find the remaining amount. What can you apply for? Well, there's a lot of information on the webpage. But essentially, we've said about the 80% of the total project costs. You can include project management costs up to 10%. You can include equipment and materials. If you're a cultural organisation, you can, within sort of environmental climate change themes within your application, you can apply. It can be an event or a project. Because it, as the name suggests, it's a community and culture project fund, it covers arts, heritage, sport, and community projects. It can be a one-off event, so that might be to promote equality and social inclusion, and quite a high demand will usually be around projects promoting health and well-being, and that can include physical activity. So it could be physical activity, but it also includes sports clubs as well. Projects addressing disadvantaging communities, you can apply. Pilot projects demonstrating new ways to deliver cultural or community activities are also eligible. Okay, it's quite a broad brush approach, I have to say. So do have a look at the website for a little bit more information, but this is just an overview really, but it covers quite a few themes, as you can see. You need to, if you're applying, you need to meet at least one of our corporate priorities. We've kind of named this the cheese board, actually. I believe that comms have rebranded it recently, but it does look a bit like a cheese board. I don't know why, but that's the name that it's got. As long as you can show that your project within your application meets at least one of these 5 priorities, then that's absolutely brilliant. It's not to say that if you meet 2 or 3 of them, that's even better, but you need to meet at least one. The one that we find for this fund that is generally the one that people tick is the staying safe and well, or as you probably would imagine, strong, healthy communities. So those are the 2 key ones that people tend to tick the box within their application. And again, if you do want to have a little bit more of a look at the cheese board, then you can find that on the application and the website. But that just gives you an overview. Core criteria. So you really need to show that your application and your organization has a social impact and improves health and well-being to the community. You need to also show how you collect information to show that a range of residents or partners have really sort of participated in your project and your idea. One of the weaknesses that we note is that people will talk about their project, but they don't actually share with us the range of organizations and partners and the communities that they've spoken to. So that's really quite key for us. Excuse me. You need to also show that you've considered your environmental impact, and we do ask for an environmental policy or statement as part of the supporting documents that you need to upload with your application. If you're a venue-based organisation, you will also need to show that you have security of tenure for at least 5 years. Okay. Within your application, we will ask you to include the following. So obviously a completed application form, which will be an online form. You'll need to show latest approved or verified accounts and copies of your last 3 bank statements for your organisation. We also need to see a copy of your governing document, whether that be a constitution or a set of rules. And some of the documents, supporting documents, will include a safeguarding policy, equality policy or statement, public liability insurance to the value of 5 million, and employers' liability insurance, if appropriate, to the value of 10 million. So those are fairly standard documents. But again, I'm going to put the caveat in for further information and clarification. Do have a look at the website, and there's a lot of information on the website to really help you with your application, both starting off and making your application. So we've got a number of local characteristics, I won't go through all of these. There is a link on the bottom around our equality and diversity duties and focus. But again, I would imagine from, you know, the little bit of chat at the beginning, you know, some of these will ring true for you, but we're very keen that we're targeting and supporting disadvantaged and marginalized groups. So it could also be rurally isolated, people on low incomes or in poverty, single parents, and also people with a military background and their families, and also gender identity. So very much focused on those groups as well. How am I doing for time, Chris? Okay. Brilliant, thumbs up, excellent. So additional criteria for the project fund. And again, the caveat is it's not exhaustive. You know, please do look at the website. You're going to be fed up of me saying that by the end of the presentation. So we really want you to show how you meet one or more of these outcomes. I put the sort of outcomes in green really. So health and well-being, particularly around communities and people, improving lives of vulnerable people, helping disabled people to live independent lives, reaching your communities that you work with, particularly those that don't typically have access to social services or cultural activity in the Dorset Council area. If you're looking to reach new, diverse, disadvantaged or marginalised audience, that's fantastic as well. And we really want you to make a positive environmental impact. Improving lives of those suffering rural deprivation. Again, as you all know, Dorset, very rural county. But we also want to help organisations to be more diverse in their activities. So again, one of the focuses of this fund is if you've got an existing area of work, it doesn't exclude you from applying, because if you want to expand that piece of work or you want to add value to it by targeting a different cohort, a different group of people, then that's absolutely fine. You can still apply if you can demonstrate that. If you're developing new activity within the organisation, that's great. Helping people to feel more connected to the place in Dorset. So if we had people that were looking at digital inclusion, particularly for those who are in isolated areas, then that would also be something that would be a really good outcome. And then raising the profile of arts, heritage, sports, environment and climate change. And last but not least, promoting equality and social inclusion through events or your project. Okay. And I think the key thing is that we get a lot of applications and people tell us about their project, but the area that they don't really do best of all is actually showing us how they know that their project's needed. Sometimes you have to read between the lines a little bit and go back, but please do tell us why it is needed, and those that you're seeking to benefit, really ask them about your project and your partners that you may be working with on this application. It's a really key area, and it's something that sometimes applications fall down on. Okay. What we will not fund. We will not fund unconstituted groups. I would imagine the second point doesn't apply to any of you here, but we will not fund organisations with a turnover of more than £500,000 per year. That's mainly because we want to focus on small and medium-sized organisations and charities. You know, those that have got income above that, they generally have a fundraising manager or team, and we want to really focus on smaller organisations that work at a much local level. Capital items are not eligible. Applications for IT equipment for personal use are not eligible, and activities and services that take place outside of the Dorset Council area are also not eligible. The point that I would make with that is that if your organisation is based and or currently working in the BCP area, for example, if you're looking at expanding or adding value to your offer and you're looking to target new groups and new activity in the Dorset Council area, that's fine, you can still apply. But if you're purely looking at delivering in the BCP area with BCP residents, then unfortunately you will not be eligible. And as the last bit says, the other caveat is please read the full list of exclusions in the online guidance, and there are a number. These are just a few that we find that unfortunately we do get people applying for some of these things, mainly not having read the criteria. Okay, how do you apply? As I've said previously, you need to apply using our online application form. Full details on eligibility, the fund criteria, the questions that you will be asked, and how to complete your application form are all contained on the website. I cannot stress enough. I probably should have this written on my head actually when I'm doing these talks or when we're talking to people over the phone. Please do read the guidance. Don't do what I do when I set up a new DVD player and I think I don't need the quick setup guide. I'll just try and operate the DVD. We'll be there. It'll be easy. The number of times that people don't read the guidance and then we have an issue and they put time and effort into an application, I just can't tell you. So please do read. Take time to read the information. On the website, you will have information on what questions you will be asked and in what order the questions occur on the online application form. You will also be given information on what supporting documents you need. And that's really quite key. We have had instances where people have left it literally to the 2 hours before the closing date and they get to the third part of the form and they need a document, and guess what? Someone else has it and it's 10 o'clock at night and it's a midnight closing date. Please do read it. It's time well invested. Okay, so I've kind of covered the next slide really, but if you're still unsure, then either contact myself directly or send an email through to the communities@dorsetcouncil.gov.uk. If I do happen to be out of the office or on leave, somebody from the team will pick up your inquiry and should be able to assist you, or at least give me a nudge that you need some help and support. And the other thing is you have got some great support here through colleagues at CAN. So depending on, maybe some of you have put an application in before. I do recognise Liz's group. I think Liz, your group has applied for funding before. But if you haven't, please do work with CAN. They will do a ready for funding or a funding ready, go through a checklist with you to make sure that you have everything in place so that you can apply and can help you with policies and documents. And the details are here if you haven't already got those. And I think just a couple more contacts there. So in terms of community applications, including Play, it's myself or my colleague Fiona Thomas. If you want some specialist advice around applications, I don't think this applies to anybody on the call today, but you've got two different colleagues there for cultural applications. If it's a sport or physical activity application, then it's my colleague Sarah Davies. So just to clarify, it's a community and culture project fund, but within that there are a number of themes that you can apply for. Okay, but I think most people on the call today will fit into the community voluntary sector applications. Okay, not sure how long that took to run, Chris, but any questions?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, thank you very much, Ian. Really appreciate the overview. And yeah, any questions from anyone in the room? Feel free. I'm having trouble with my mouse, so feel free to come off mute, state your name, and then ask Ian your question directly.
Hi, I've got a question. I got really distracted in that last 2 minutes, Ian. Could you
Right.
tell me what was the extra bits you said about extra grants?
Oh, the extra, right, okay. So just to give you a very quick, I need to add a slide onto the presentation for this, but we do have a couple of other grants, and I will, Chris, when he sends out the information, he'll have access to this information. But we do have a revenue grant, which we run once a year, and that is to provide much needed revenue support for the running costs of organisations. Now, in the world of grants, that's quite a rare thing to get funding for your normal running costs. If that is of interest to any of you, sadly, you have just missed the most recent round, but there will be another round early next year. So there's a positive there, but a negative on the back of that one. Apologies for that. The other one that we currently run is if you require a capital application, so funding for a refurbishment, renewal of facilities, or just making good an existing venue, or, you know, if you need to put money into a new site or a new venue, anything to do with capital, then we have what we call our capital leverage fund. Now that is currently open, and you have until January 2023, I think it's the 6th of January, to put your application in for that. Again, there are details on our website. With that fund, it's slightly different. It's the complete opposite of this particular fund, the Community and Culture Project Fund, where you need to find 20% of your project costs. It's the other way around with the Capital Leverage Fund. As the name suggests on the can, it is a fund that enables you to leverage in funding from other external organisations. So we will only provide 20% of your total project costs. So other way around, you've then got to find 80% for that particular fund if it's capital. But I will put an extra slide on the presentation, and then Chris can send that out to you.
Thank you.
All right, Anne? Okay.
I had one question just for clarity, Ian, on the values that you can apply for. I didn't know, did you want to stop sharing your screen while we're in this?
Yeah, I will.
No problem. So you mentioned about the 80%, and you mentioned about the in one circumstance being able to apply for up to £5,000. So does that mean, just for clarity, that the council can fund £5,000 if it's a £6,000 project, for example, because that would be 80%? Yeah. So yes, it's not correct. It's not, the total isn't £5,000 for your project. No. Okay.
No. Fine. So we have had this happen before, where we've had people say, well, my project is £10,000 and we're applying for £8,000. No, it's up to a maximum of £5,000.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
I don't know if Emily or Peter, I know you joined us, or Liz or James, have you had any other questions you'd like to ask Ian while we've got his time?
I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Hello, Liz. That's all right, Liz.
Hello.
Hi.
I know, Ian, you love a good email from me with a question.
All right.
So here we go. Can the work take place in school?
We generally don't fund organisations that deliver in school, on the basis that there's quite a bit of funding that gets allocated through the education system. So funding for schools, working schools, tends to be you're not eligible. However, I think the approach that you could look at is, if you've got a school that is willing to partner with you, and it's something that benefits the community, and it might not be on a school site. I'm not saying that you would be successful, but schools are not eligible to apply, or organisations. So with your Wired UK, if you were looking for funding to go in and deliver during curriculum time, or do something out of school hours but on a school site, that probably would either be ineligible or a very, very low priority.
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense. We're generally oversubscribed. So to give you an example, our last grant fund that we ran, which was the revenue fund, we received in excess, if we'd given the money that was asked for in the applications, I think we were looking at something like £600,000 was applied for, and we only had less than £200,000 to allocate over 2 years. So what's the sums on that? Probably only 1 in 4. So it's not an area that we particularly want to fund. I'm not saying it's not important for the work that you do, but I think, you know, the floodgates would absolutely open and we'd be absolutely inundated. So unfortunately, yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question. Have you got another one?
I do.
Fire away, fire away.
And then in the details, it said that one-to-one mentoring was not eligible. How does that work then with counselling? Is a counselling service in the community eligible?
Yes, it is. We have funded previously organisations that work with families, all those groups that are at risk, and that includes, I'm just trying to think of an example. I mean, we've funded organisations that are trying to help people that have offended, trying to stop them from reoffending, and that involves sort of one-to-one mentoring and support, because that's the most appropriate way for them to work with their clients. Where it becomes difficult is that we do get people that say, can we access some grant funding? And they wish to use the grant then to deliver their own grant using that funding.
Yeah.
And they then deliver the one-to-one mentoring, or they deliver a bursary scheme. We don't have any control if that happens, and we're not able to look at the quality of it and control it. So that's why we don't tend to support groups that might go down that route.
Perfect, thank you. And then my final question, if I dare take up more time.
You can go for 3. I haven't lost any lifelines, and I haven't, you know.
We're going strong here, Ian. We're going strong.
I haven't had to ask the audience, so that's fine.
Is with the 20%, can that be volunteering to then make it up to the 100%?
So what you're saying is, can it be a contribution in kind?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, no. It has to be either the applicant's own funds, which you might have in reserves, or it has to be funding that you've secured from another grant organisation. So when you complete the application form, I can't tell you what question. I'd be quite sad if I was able to tell you which question it was in what part of the form. It will say to you, it will ask you how much is your cost of your project, and it will ask you to list where you are going to secure the 20%. It doesn't matter if you haven't secured it at the time of applying, because you can tick a box and say applied for, but any award that we provide the applicant with, it comes on the condition that we have that funding, that 20% secured. So we can't, unfortunately, we'd love to just give you the money and say, well, let us know when you've raised the remaining 20%, but unfortunately we can potentially get into some difficulties there, as you can imagine. So yes, you do need to do that. It's something some funders will allow you to add that, you know, as a contribution, but we kind of want to see that really firm commitment from other partners or your organisation saying, well, you know, we need £5,000, but we've got £1,000 of our own funding, or we've raised some more. And in actual fact, if you've raised more than 20%, yep, that's even better.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Fourth one? No? Okay.
No, I'll stick to 3 for now. There might be another one later.
All right,
never
then.
know.
Okay. All right. Well, just email me if you have another one.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from anyone else in the room?
Anyone else?
To include you in that, Avril, if there's anything you'd want to clarify about the fund. You are muted though, so you're currently talking to yourself.
Can I ask another question while he's thinking about it?
You can, yes. You can ask two if you want.
All right, thank you. So
All right.
we're doing our outreach in BCP, but we want to go into Ferndown and Wimborne next. So
Yeah.
that's what we'd be looking for the funding for.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
Yes, yep, that's absolutely fine. As we said before, as long as what I would say to you in that case is that you need to make it really clear where your base is for you know, the current service and the work that you do, but you need to be really clear on what target groups or populations you're going to work with to spend the grant. And you really, I'm just sort of, you know, to really bolster up your application, really make sure that you can demonstrate that there is a need. Because if you say, we believe there is a need in Ferndown and Wimborne, you can bet your bottom dollar the panel will come back, or I'll come back to you and say, okay, so show us the need then. What do you have that can demonstrate there is a need, other than saying it's a really good project or it's really needed? Yeah. So please do bear that in mind when you're filling in the application form.
Okay, no worries.
But yes, you can. Yes.
I'll think about the next one.
All right.
All I was going to say whilst I was muted was, I think the key thing that I've taken away from this is, if you're going to apply, read the website. That's the key thing, to make sure you're completing your documents and you've got everything.
Absolutely. And I think the final point is that, you know, we've all got different levels of IT experience. You know, I'm not particularly, I'm somewhere about a 5 or a 6 out of 10 in terms of IT, or probably about a 4 because I couldn't share my presentation earlier, press the wrong button. But it is quite a simple online form to complete, but only if you read the guidance. So there is a step-by-step guide. So when you go onto the landing page or the web page, do have a look at the criteria, do have a look at the questions and which order they come in. It will tell you what documents are needed and where they're needed. Because we don't ask you to upload 12 documents all at the end of the application. They are spread across 4 different sections. So, you know, please do take the time. And if, you know, with your committees and your groups, once you know the documents that you need, make sure you get them from somebody, because they're generally on someone else's PC. And we do have it time and time again where people, you know, they're that close to the deadline and they haven't got a piece of information, or they haven't got the answers to a question. We're not trying to trip you up, but forewarned is prepared, isn't it? So please do. I can't stress that enough. And again, if you're not really sure, then give us a call, and we can just go through the guidance with you. And if there's anything you don't understand, that's fine. We can have a conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I think that gives a moment for any final questions, if anyone. I'm
just waiting for Anne to come back with another question, or Liz to come back with a 4th one.
Look at Liz and Anne.
Question number 3. Do you know of any funds or awards that I could apply for BCP?
Sorry, say again, Anne, for
BCP.
That's a tricky one. What I think probably the other thing to say, and I probably should have put this on a slide. I mean, just a quick show of hands. How many of you on the call have heard of Dorset Funder Finder? Chris has.
Yeah, you have, Anne.
Yeah. Okay. Liz, have you heard of Dorset Funder Finder?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in answer to the question is, people often say, and if I've had two this morning, first day back from holiday, saying, where can I get money for X or Y? The difficulty that we have is that if we had a funding page, we would probably need somebody 1 or 2 days a week to keep updating the funding page, because as you'll know, funds get changed, they get updated, they launch, they close, they get relaunched. We would never be able to do that. The best thing that we tend to do is we tend to say, to your question, Anne, is to go on to Dorset Funder Finder. It's free to register. All you need is your name, a contact email, and the name of your organisation. And you can then go in and do a search. So you would put in into the search engine who you were looking to support, what type of activities. It will give you a list, a breakdown of local, regional and national funding streams that meet your search criteria. It will save them for you. It will also, once you're registered, it will give you new alerts to any funding that comes up. Now, they might be quite niche, they might not be appropriate to you, but you will then be in the loop in terms of any funding that is coming up. It's the easiest way to do it. You know, do your search, cup of coffee, chocolate biscuit of a weekend, rather than trawling through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, because there are hundreds and they are all slightly different, and that's the best advice that I can give you. There are some specific ones that we know of, but again, you know, they will all come up on the Funder Finder if they meet your criteria that you put in. So that's probably, there is another one called Funding Central, but I think that's not a free one. I think you have to pay for that one.
What I'll look to do is ensure all of these are listed on the email that comes out. It maybe comes out tomorrow with the slides and the recording. But James, I saw you put your hand up. Was there something you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say the one that I use as well is Open for Community.
Yeah.
You can register on them and then
Yeah.
you get them all sent through. They still got the old Bournemouth logo on, but yeah, it does the job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not you know, I'm not saying that we're any better than BCP. I mean, I think they have got some grants programs, but I think probably from a monetary value and a frequency, I think we're very lucky in Dorset Council, and members are very supportive at the moment of the funding that we give out. So I'm not sure BCP have quite the same resources, but it's always worth having a conversation with them.
Chris, yeah, and if BCP have the same thing for Find a Funder, it's exactly the same, and it covers their area as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, like I said, I'll look to include, I've made a few notes as we've gone, so I'll include details of obviously the fund we talked about today and Ian's contact details and the recording and the slides, but I'll also add a little bit extra based on the questions that we've had, so that people can look up these in their own time, and obviously visit Dorset Council website to read the exclusion list, amongst other things.
Absolutely.
That's it. I think that neatly brings us to a close on today's session, other than just to obviously thank Ian and all yourselves for attending. The only other thing I wanted to mention was, obviously, I think most of you are probably registered with Community Action Network already, but as Ian mentioned and Avril alluded to as well, I think we're there obviously to support charities, voluntary and community groups across Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole and now Dorset as well. So if you're looking for some support, whether that be getting things set up for an application to the likes of Ian and Dorset Council or something completely different, then please feel free to reach out and consider membership with us if you're not already a member. Just to flag, the next couple of sessions we've got coming up, a few more in June, and the next couple we've got Being a Charity Trustee, which is actually an in-person session, which is taking place on 21st of June. I'll link to this on the email that goes out as well, if anyone is interested in that, or if anyone within their organisation might be interested. And then we have a webinar. All our webinars are free, and one on recruiting trustees, which is taking place on the 23rd of June as well. But again, there are many more sessions on the website, but they are just the next two just to flag. And then a final thing from me is just to say I will include a feedback survey in the email that goes out. Feedback, as Ian will tell you, is really important for the funders as much as it is for us to help adapt and evolve our offer. So pretty pleased that if as many people could just complete that. It will only take about a minute to complete. It's very short and sharp, and it helps us then to look at how we can best support you in the future, and whether there's anything we can do to improve these types of sessions. So that's just a little beg from me. Is there anything else anyone would like to say or ask before we draw the session to a close? Other than, again, just to thank everyone for attending, and thank you very much, Ian, for your overview, and yeah, fingers crossed. Oh, my camera changed for everyone else?
You've got a nice colour cerise pink.
You've gone a, yes.
Yeah, okay.
You've gone purple.
I didn't do that, so that's interesting. But I think that probably tells us that the session is due to come to an end. So yeah, I'll see you hopefully in full colour in the future. But thank you all for attending, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me.